So it's a 24-hour work life in some respects.
25% of code in Google products is now produced by AI.
And I'm going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Mark Edwards with the Channel Zone podcast. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today, I have Stuart Brinicombe. Stuart, say hi.
Hello.
Cheers. Thank you for being here. Stuart is VP of Go-to-Market and many other things also at Couchbase. So off the mark here, Stuart, just can you give the audience, whether it's viewers or listeners, a little bit of an introduction, maybe to Couchbase first of all, because the company, it's a bit of a niche area. Would you say Couchbase are a niche offering?
Well, I would say, Mark, great to join you. Thanks for the invite. So, Couchbase is the developer data platform for critical applications in our AI world. That is our strapline, if you like, as we move forward. And really, Couchbase is a NoSQL database that allows developers to build the next generation of digital applications faster, at lower cost, with lower risk. And offers a platform whether you want to run those workloads on-premise or fully managed in the cloud, where we also have our own fully managed database as a service offering called Capella. So we're really in the database world, but I really think of us being in the world of applications.
And the NoSQL, it's quite confusing because I always thought NoSQL was kind of excludes SQL, but actually it means not only SQL, I think is what NoSQL stands for.
Yeah, correct. So if you look at a lot of applications, they would have been developed using SQL as the language that they use to communicate with their database and the application functions. So we have a very close relationship with SQL. We do a lot of work with, and I know a lot of our engineering teams still speak to Don Chamberlain, who you could consider as one of the founding fathers of SQL.
Oh, wow.
So, databases now, it's about doing more than just rows and columns and having an ability to take in lots more data to bring fully enriched application experiences to people. So, doesn't mean there is no SQL, but it means there's more than SQL.
Absolutely, but I say it's an odd turn of phrase. But so you're at Couchbase now and have been for a number of years. But I checked out on LinkedIn a little earlier, and you go all the way back into the dim and distant past. And right at the very beginning of your career, I see Novell. I remember. I wouldn't have thought Novell still exists actually. But how did you get from? Can you give us a kind of career trajectory from account manager at Novell to where you are today, with a few pit stops along the way?
Yeah, we could spend many laps going through that story, so I won't go through every twist and turn. But Novell was a great place. I was very lucky to have started there in some ways, because a couple of things. One is that Eric Schmidt was CEO for a lot of the time that I was there.
Oh, wow.
So you were actually getting a lot of insight from someone that came on to be very much a digital visionary.
Absolutely.
And then obviously went on to Google after that. And I also got to learn, they very much invested in the sales team, and I did a lot of learning around cognitive models and applying them. So when I was earlier on in my sales career and you're less experienced, I had some frameworks to be able to use, and that stood me in good stead as I developed my individual contributor career through a number of companies before moving to Oracle, where I was in the ISV business there. And as happened pretty much every year at Oracle, you were almost like on an annual contract, it felt sometimes, but in changes in one fiscal year, I had the opportunity to move into a leadership role and then led teams through the alliances and channels business in the UK and EMEA. Before leaving there, I then was kind of trying to find the right fit and found that in a few places. Good Technology was a great experience of a rapidly emerging, fast-growing company in a hot space in the mobile productivity world, where people were just starting to use iPhones and iPads in a professional context and wanted a secure way of doing that. Through to where I am now at Couchbase, where I've been for nearly 6 years, where I think I've been able to utilize that tool bag of learning and development that I had at some of those places to be able to take our journey through and now post IPO here.
Brilliant. I also did see on there. I hadn't come across. Is it ThingWorks? But it's a
Yeah.
PTC company. I'd hear
Oh.
PTC to me have got like legendary status as a sales organization. Few people I know. It sounds like that was. I wouldn't say it's Glengarry Glen Ross if you've ever seen that movie, but it sounds like that was a real, I don't know, a kind of top-end professional sales organization, very, very disciplined. Was it still like that at ThingWorks?
Well, so
ThinkWorks?
what was quite interesting is, so before I joined PTC, I had, I was fortunate, the person that I did my force management, command of the message, command of the sale, medic training was actually John Kaplan that delivered that session in, I believe it was quite a dingy meeting room in Dusseldorf, I seem to recall. And so when I went into PTC, I had good awareness of what the culture and how sales ran there. And the ThingWorks part of the business was a new emerging technology area inside the same industrial life cycle, digital asset space. Digital twin was a concept that was kind of becoming prevalent around IoT use cases then. So it was trying to match this startup, high energy kind of technology with a very steady stage kind of business in PTC. And it was run in a very disciplined and structured way, and I think to its benefit. And I do think that the people that have come from that PTC tree, whether it's through BMC, other companies, our VP of Sales in Americas is one of those people that was close to the core of those PTC people, and it does hold people in good stead. Interesting now how those models are evolving and adapting to the way in which digital technology and everything is now sold. So, but yeah, it was a good experience, and I certainly look back with fondness, especially to John Kaplan's story about flying the desk or the loneliness at end of quarter for the sales leader. I think there was a lot of, not just a lot of practical learning, but a lot of emotional learning as well.
Right. So did just maybe something, because I've never done command of sale or command of message. Back in it would have been Miller Hyman, target account selling, challenger selling as well. I've done, but I know of command of sale. Has that got any actual connection to PTC? It didn't spin out of it by any chance, did it? Or
well, I think that the concepts that kind of founded that span out of the approach that PTC took to that. So I think very much spun out of that. I mean, interestingly, at Novell, I did the Miller Hyman framework there. So it was actually my first experience of someone with a Cumbrian accent. For those not familiar with the UK, if you are from the Thames Valley and hadn't experienced someone from Cumbria, there was some challenges on some of the words, especially node, which was interesting. Well, I've been through Miller Hyman, all of the force management, medic.
Did you ever do solution selling? Michael Bosworth, did you ever do that?
No, see, that's the one I missed. I've done the challenger sales stuff as well. So, but I've read the solution selling framework. Right. I think what's good about all of these things is the more knowledge of these frameworks that you've got, you're able to better place which aspects of these work for the particular product or technology that you have. And some work really well, and some aspects of that still work well for our business. But currently, I mean, a lot of our audience is developers and architects, which are, people that don't want to tell you things naturally about what they're doing. So you've got to use aspects of that, but you're not. Our software is, we sell. I always say to people, we don't win accounts, we win apps. So if you're buying a Workday or an SAP accounting system or a 6sense ABM or something like that, you're buying one typically for the company. So you go through the sales process of ticking off the layers, getting all the personas kind of there. Whereas with us, that could be multiple people. Developers spin up applications all the time in different groups. So we could lose one account, one app, and that means you lose the account. So our job is to get more and more apps in place. So
right, and more evangelists out there ultimately, then, or more committed Couchbase users.
I think that with our product, what we see is that where we go big, there is a group of people or sometimes a single person, if it's a big enough personality, that loves the product, believes in the product, and has seen value in how they've been able to do the work that they need to do. Same with lots of things. You need the champion there, but in the concept when you're going different department, different app to app, you need someone that's going to advocate on your behalf. So, and we also have a very strong developer advocacy approach alongside that as well.
And when you say go big, I think what you mean there is, because ultimately, if your database is used in an app, if the app explodes, or when I mean explodes, if the app goes big, then that goes big for you too. Yeah, is that what you mean?
So there's two. Yeah, that's definitely one of the aspects of it. So digital native or gaming companies, as an example, that's an area where our technology and the way that it works is particularly strong with the requirements that they have for those kind of applications. So high volume of users, user experience, personalization, profile management. So if we're with those companies, then we can get a spike of usage by their game going big. And there was actually a game, you won't believe there may be some people that have played it. There's a game called Dave the Diver, which is a big platform, a big game from one of our customers in Asia. That game exploded and we actually saw a big spike whilst most of Western Europe was on their Christmas break. People were downloading and playing this game and therefore consuming more of the database as a requirement for it. The other way that we do that is by getting success with one use case and one application, and then going to different teams and different people who are building different applications and getting more like that. So there's the growth by that actual use case getting bigger. And then there's the app to app piece where you go into, through advocacy into more applications. And, in some of our customers now, we're into the hundreds of applications that we support.
Brilliant. Now then, so I didn't give your whole title because it's rather long and
not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is VP of, I think it was GTM strategy. Is there alliance and partners in there as well? And then there's a field enablement piece to it. So I'm just kind of interested. What a typical day? I don't know whether there is a typical day because you seem to have, quite a broad range of responsibilities there. But can you just give us what might the day look like?
Yeah, I think no. So there's three main hats currently that I don: the go-to-market strategy kind of slash chief of staff role in the CRO organization, the field enablement side, and then our global partner sales team, which is the part of our business that is, working in the field alongside the sales teams and with the partners in the region. I think one thing that links my day together is one of the things that's I'm conscious about is that part of my role is to try and bring progress in moving from individual endeavor to a programmatic best practice approach. So I get the good thing about the broad job title is the broad scope, and that I get to see what lots of different groups and people are doing. So we can take innovation that comes from our field into programs that we can then roll out and make successful with other people. And it can be a bit seasonal as well. So right now, we're on day one of our Q4 and moving towards the end of fiscal, which means for me, end of year planning, obviously a big focus, but then we have our sales kickoff, which starts, I think this year we've got a bit of time, but it's 7 days after the end of our fiscal year. So a lot of preparation around sales kickoff being a big focus now.
Right.
But my typical day would be working with the individuals in my team, the sales leaders, the other cross-functional people involved in our go-to-market to execute against that strategy. So I talked about app-to-app selling. We have a clear set of sales motions that we go to market with as well. So making sure that people are aligned with that. So I think my typical day is very much trying to get all of the great ideas and innovation that people are working on into that programmatic approach so we can get that value into as much of the field team as possible.
Super. Now then, so a slight change of subject here. I've been reading. It's an old book actually, The Shock Doctrine here by Naomi
Yes.
Klein. This is about how the kind of world pivots and changes, typically in response to major shocks, major traumas in the course of our lifetime. We can go back to 2001. 9/11 was responsible for many changes in the world that we live in today. 2008, 2009 financial crisis, all sorts of issues stemming from that. But the one that perhaps is most pertinent and most recent here. So I believe that fundamentally the world has changed massively since lockdown. I mean, we had that period from March 2020. Where it does now feel as if we are out of it. But we're nearly into 2025. So it was like a 3-year period there. Do you agree? I mean, I think it's fundamentally changed the world.
Yeah, no, it has. I certainly learned a lot about being a quizmaster during the time of lockdown, which was something that, along with the clear skies, something that I missed from that time. If it's possible to miss something from a time that was, very difficult for a number of people. I think the change now, as it relates in our world, are a few things.
Yeah.
One is there's definitely a hugely increasing expectation of digital services. So when it became a requirement for people who are less familiar with doing it, and not to stereotypically talk about them, but I'll use my mother as one because it's her birthday today. So happy birthday,
Happy
Mum.
birthday.
She's become much more familiar. She had a very basic phone before lockdown. Now she's got one of our old iPhones. She's got digital banking on there. She checks the bus timetables and does the live tracking of that. So expectations of digital services started to increase because more people had to use them and rely on them. You're in the UK. If you get test results or blood test results, they come through the app now. They don't call you and kind of read them out, or certainly we're a long way away from the local doctor visiting you to go through them.
Yeah.
So because of that, apps have become more prevalent. So this idea of there's an app for that, I think very much proliferated through. It was in the world anyway, but it became even more critical. And those applications, I think, then came alongside changing in now working practices.
Right.
So hybrid working, increased remote work, more roles being able to be facilitated to have remote work. And people can work anywhere. So I think one of the impacts, certainly we've seen in our teams, is, how do you build that sense of place and connection where you can get people together for a valuable purpose, not just to kind of, hey, we're doing a free lunch today in the office, can you come in? But actually because they want to utilize that time to collaborate, to do the work that's harder to do when you're remote. I know you're a great advocate for this and use it as well, and I try to do that more so. But things like whiteboarding physically, more people are comfortable with that than being able to do that digitally, so it's a lot harder. So some of those collaborative type things and the changes in working practices. And then I think the third change, when it comes to pressure increases for the individual when you're working in this, more pressure of the distractions that come from your working environment, more pressure that comes from, well, if you're here, can you help with X? The expectation from your boss that, well, it's kind of easier for you to jump online. Can you do this call at 7:30 or 8 p.m. or whatever it might be? So time stretching is a little bit of a thing I certainly want to try and make sure I manage with my team. I don't mind people working at the times that suit them, but there's also a responsibility I've got to make sure that I'm looking after their well-being, and they're not just doing that without being very conscious that it is good for them. So I think
but you're managing. You got people in the UK, Europe, US. Have you got them in Asia as well?
Yeah.
So it's a 24-hour work life in some respects.
It is. It is. And I think, depending on where in the world you are, you either get a good or a, less good outcome from that. I think what's
Mm.
interesting, and I've seen that, I mean, it's certainly true at our company and in others as well. The traditional view of where leadership roles need to be placed for certain functions is also changing. So I've seen like more customer success type leaders or global partner leaders as well, actually being put in a European time zone because of that fact. So actually
Right.
they're the people who are best able to extend into Americas and Asia time zones more comfortably because of kind of, thankfully because of Greenwich Mean Time. I mean, that's the
Right.
reason.
That's
There's
right.
no other reason than that. But
Mm.
I think that's also something that's come from that. So yeah, I mean, I've got people from, I think that we've got people as far east in my part of the org as Singapore, and then out on the west coast in California as well. So yeah, it creates some more challenges.
As I say, it could be a very long day if you've got, as I say, with Asia as well, right through the US. That's a toughie. Are you traveling as much? Because my guess is, again, pre-lockdown, in the kind of role that you were in, you'd have been flying all over the place. You'd have been a wonderful gold card or platinum card member. Have you reduced? Is it because it stopped for a while? Are you back to the same travel commitments, or is it
No.
less than it was?
No, yeah, significantly less. I mean,
Right.
I remember my
good.
peak. I remember my peak year because I did 106 flight segments in a year, which I'm sure some people are watching this saying, "Is that all? Come on, you could have made an effort." I'm nowhere near anything like that at the moment. I think there's a couple of reasons. One is some of the spend that companies were putting into traveling expense had to move into digital collaboration technology.
Right.
So Zoom, other more advanced things that people are using in and around that. So there was a shift in that. And then physically, well, am I going for that? Am I going to travel for a valuable, reason for the output that we're actually going to expend here, both in terms of cost and lost time? And what you start to realize is, and even within countries, so take in Germany, where, I remember loads of colleagues of mine, past and present, I've spoken to. It was very much the case that, you would have a fast, reliable, comfortable four-seater saloon to pound the autobahns to be able to, I'm going to go and meet 3 partners today, and I'm going to go from Munich up to Stuttgart, maybe a couple there, back, in pockets of travel.
Right.
Whereas now, I think people would prefer to do 5 meetings in a day and do none of them physically. And then go and travel for the event or the community meeting or the, I know for me as well, I always try and, if there's and there's one in a couple of weeks, so there's an event that I'm going to be attending with one of our partners, TD Cynics, in London in a couple of weeks. So in and around that, I've arranged over those 2 days to see everyone that I'd like to see, to catch up with, whether it's just a quick catch up or, look, we haven't sat down and just kind of talked through things for a while to, look at some innovations and maximize that time there. So definitely not traveling as much. And I think also that as a result of the changes, the impact to, if you think about from an air travel perspective, certainly the impact of that industry, then the increase in costs now, especially if, I mean, the average cost of flights from London, say out to Singapore or to Austin or San Francisco or New York or something like that are certainly 3 to 4x what they were pre-lockdown. So you've also got to consider, I can absolutely remember an open world flight. I think it was my last one when I was at Oracle, costing in the few hundreds of pounds to San Francisco. So I think just less than 500.
San Francisco. Wow.
And I looked at a flight where it was a last minute thing. So it was, say last minute, a couple of weeks notice. So it wasn't quite as good. But, economy tickets now were in the 3,000 on that trip. So there are fewer opportunities to travel. The expense has increased.
Yeah.
and the necessity to do it has decreased, and all those things
Yeah.
combined, I
And
think
it's
is
never going back, Stuart. I think that's it has the shock of it all. As I said, it's interesting you mentioned the clear skies because our two adult daughters came back to live with us here in lockdown, and they they look back at lockdown as they had a beautiful spring and summer. We had, if you remember, March, April 2020. It was idyllic in the garden. It really was. We had blue skies, nice
yes,
weather. The grass was green. It hasn't quite been the same this year, but I would say in many respects kind of traumatic. We'll look back in 5 years, 10 years, and be able to see some additional significant impacts. But it is, as I say, the major shock of
yes.
our time. But moving on, if I can,
Sure.
the other, let's say, the other trending topic of the day. We've moved past. If you remember, if I go back 10, 15 years ago, it was cloud this, cloud that, cloud the other. Then in digital transformation. Oh, IoT. But now I would say it's all AI. There seems to be lots of AI companies springing up wherever. Interested to learn a little bit about your experience of AI. Are you using it personally, and is Couchbase using it, perhaps particularly in a sales context? Also, maybe even on the enablement side. What is AI for you?
So a couple of lenses on that. The first, there was a quote I heard at the end of last week that I really thought was fascinating, and it was: the Industrial Revolution made human strength irrelevant to productivity. The AI revolution could make human intelligence irrelevant to growth in productivity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, but and I say that because I've seen people talk about eras, right? Oh, this is the AI era. Eras typically have a place in which they then they stop. And at this stage, I don't think anyone can see where there is a stop. This is an area of technology that is going to grow. Google results just earlier this week. I don't profess to be smart enough to make a call on Google's health based on their balance sheet. I look with interest rather than the huge amount of knowledge. But one thing that was in the notes was 25% of code in Google products is now produced by AI. So in a technology sense, and it's one of the things that we've focused on in our as a service offering, is we have something called Capella IQ, which is a coding assistant. We talked earlier about SQL. It allows you to take old SQL code, look at that, suggest how you'd want to rewrite that. Even as that starts to develop, suggest changes that you might want to make rather
is that
than...
what Capella does? So Capella is
Capella IQ. So it's something that's a feature within Capella. And coding assistants more and more prevalent and popular. And, you can't scroll probably, or maybe it's just my algorithm, but you can't scroll 10 TikTok videos without seeing someone that's advocating building a new B2B SaaS app based on having no coding experience. So I think certainly in that paradigm, we know it's going to have impact. From a personal point of view, I use an LLM kind of assistant to help with production of content in terms of kind of first drafts. So inputting a load of different things. I also use it. The other good use I found is recently with Google Notebook LM, which is something that I think a lot of people are now kind of getting onto. And what it allows you to do, for our executive team, I wanted to give them a bit of a summary of a month's worth of meetings, calls, things I'd had around a few subjects relevant: AI, B2B SaaS tools. There were a few other things. So I uploaded a few documents. I uploaded a summary that I'd written. And then one of the features in that is you can produce a conversation. So it then produces effectively like an AI generated podcast, which you can tell it's like AI generated because it doesn't have quite the same, I'm sure that through this we would have mispronounced words, stuttered on a few things, whereas they don't tend to do that in that world. That's a really good really good use case. So I think from a personal point of view, experimentation inside your working practice, like how you like to work and things that can help you to produce work and productivity, going back to that quote before. Now, in our company, from a tooling point of view, I think there was a recent McKinsey study that I think highlighted the 3 areas that I'd identify as being relevant from our market in kind of B2B sales and how do we use these tools. And one that we're seeing obviously a lot of takeoff is kind of efficiency boost. Right? So this is where an AI tool will take over simple basic tasks like scheduling meetings, sending follow-up notes, inputting data into your CRM system. So if you're using a tool like Gong and you're recording and getting a transcript of the information that you've got, it can look at that, feed that directly into your CRM, and then be able to put that into your medic scoring to be able to kind of help with qualification. So efficiency boost, I think, is the first wave that people are looking at. How can I do the things that I need to do now
quicker, faster?
Yeah, and
better in many respects.
There was a tool. I was at this dinner the other week, and I was speaking to someone who's using this tool called Glyphic. And what that does is it can automate an actual customer conversation, so a bit more than chatbot. So it was leaving voice note messages for the customer. So the AI is leaving voice-generated messages to get a message back, to interpret that. So it's having a conversation on your behalf. So that efficiency boost is certainly something that is going to be there. And there's lots of talk alongside that about, and you talked about lockdown and less physical meetings. There's more talk about how the person then is going to become even more important of interpreting how do I use, like I've now got an efficiency boost, but I'd be more valuable through that rather than just more productive. It's almost a given I'm going to get a chance to be more productive.
If Steve Jobs, I think his famous analogy back when introducing the personal computer to the world was he saw the personal computer acting like a bike. The human being became so much more efficient using a bicycle, and he saw the personal computer, as having a similar effect on mankind. But I said it's the same again here. I mean, that quote you gave earlier on about the difference between the Industrial Revolution and AI, I mean, that's potentially quite shocking in many respects. I'm having a whale of a time with it at the moment. On my my computer here, my workstation, I use something called Cider, which is ChatGPT, but it basically anything I put into Google Chrome for a search, it does an automatic AI search as well. But I've recently put ChatGPT on my phone, and it's a different world altogether. When I speak by prompt, I speak by question, and then plug that in, and it's an extraordinary asset. Effectively, it is. It's like an encyclopedia and an assistant and everything, just sitting there, free of charge.
No, it really is. I saw someone do an example of doing voice to code, where they were just talking into it to actually code something in as well. So, yeah, and that's interesting because I think that takes into the second area a little bit, which is rather than just making more efficient the things that you do now, but it's then unlocking new growth. So how do I start to do things differently? One of the things that we're utilizing some of these tool sets around is what I'd call almost trying to give the sales team X-ray vision. So there are there's so much more data available now, so many insights that you could get that show. Simple example I'll give you. So let's say we know that there's a user that's created a free tier account for Capella and they're just experimenting in there. Well, we can now track in the product what they're actually doing, how many, have they spun up any clusters, have they put any data in it? Right, we can start to track that. If we then parallel that, we kind of triangulate, that with, well, we've seen that same person has gone onto our documentation site to look for documents about how to do this thing. and then we've seen a forum post from that person asking for help, I think we could assume that we can make some assumptions that this person is trying to build something, let's help them. And so human intervention can be about helping that, whereas we might not even know that that person was struggling or couldn't do something. So I think there's lots of examples of that unlocking new growth. And the final one is that glyphic tool almost talked about, and then there's lots of others that do this, is where AI is driving the sales journey itself. So this is where you'll get AI applications that, based on, we've got an ideal customer profile, we've got a huge data set of where we've sold, where we've won, where we've lost before. AI is then making decisions about prioritization of opportunities, qualifying those leads based on a very complex data set, but then starting to communicate. They can do it. You can do it with voice to date. You can do it with video, but it's a bit clunky and it's also quite expensive. But very soon, I can imagine I will have my digital AI avatar that I could have even more sets of glasses that I could put on it at that stage, because you've got ultimate freedom of digital eyewear. And then that could be having a meeting with someone whilst I'm having a meeting with someone else.
Yeah.
So getting AI to drive the journey, even in highly complex situations, I think is the direction of travel in B2B selling.
We've got an amazing period ahead of us here, I think, in that respect. If I can tie that, are they using is our enablement using AI in any way? I'm doing some work with a security vendor, and the guy out in the US. I've done whiteboards for them, and now rather than me do a video with a picture of me in the corner explaining what to do at a certain point in the whiteboard, I now record it. I haven't seen the end result yet, but I think they have an avatar. They can basically pick, it'll be a man, it could be a woman, it could be anything maybe, but they basically end up appearing on the screen and presenting using my words, not in my voice. Unfortunately, they don't have my lovely Welsh accent to go with it. They probably translate it into whatever else. But I find that... Is it true? Are you doing anything like that in enablement with Couchbase?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we're doing today. So if you talk about language, one thing that the video technology is very good at being able to do is translate. So if I take our partner community in Korea, the vast majority of our partner community in Korea want to have especially technical communication in Korean.
Right.
So we've got our team there that can obviously do that and go and meet with people, but there's only so many people you could then get to. So we then put the enablement content through that. So we then have whoever is delivering it, me, one of the product people, whoever it might be, is then talking in Korean, even with like lip matching and stuff like that to help with the flow of it. The concept that I think we've got around enablement that we're working to with our technology as well is this idea of enablement in the flow of work. So rather than enablement as here's how you do something and test if you know how to do it, yes, you want to build some foundations, but actually, let's say I'm on a discovery call for it's a retail prospect and they've mentioned that they got an issue with a customer 360 solution. Whilst I'm on that call and I'm in my CRM screen, actually, rather than you having to go and look for the resource, we have the right resource there, which is tell them about what we've done with retailer X, tell them what we've done with retailer Y, tell them what we've done on this 360, and just give them the information they need in the flow of work. So there's definitely some AI technology and tooling that helps us.
Is that happening now? Can that be done now? Because that just sounds like when I put my sales job, I started when I came to London in 1986. I sold copiers, but what you were just saying there sounded to me like when I was on the telephone to a potential customer, my manager used to sit by the side of me and he'd either be kind of, whispering things for me to actually bring up in a conversation or writing things out on paper, passing them in front of me, passing notes. So he was effectively doing the same kind of thing. I mean, clearly, what you talked about there is going to come. I mean, it is.
there's stuff that's there. There was an example of someone. We don't use this product, but I mean, a couple of things. If I take something like Gong, that your boss sitting next to you, or I can remember when my first inside sales, when I was first doing inside sales at Novell, would have this, and the team leader would sit on the headset, and you do your call. You'd feel a bit uncomfortable because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You know that someone's listening, but you do your best, and then they talk through what you should have done. I've seen now there's this application that's basically a dialer, so it links into your calling. So it's dialing. As soon as it gets someone, that person leaves like you're in the lobby. It's all linked to Spotify. So you're playing music with all your colleagues, like you'd be in a physical, like inside sales floor, or you've got everyone there. They go off. If you want, you just click and you can go and listen. So maybe a couple of you go and listen to that call, or the boss goes to listen to it, comes back and says, amazing, great call. So rather than just critique, you're also giving encouragement, like that was brilliant. Do you know what you could have said? Oh, yeah, that would have been great. And you get that reinforcement on the fly. Those technologies that allow, or something like Gong that allows the call recording and then suggests how you could optimize that against what you should be doing, then those are things that are absolutely being done today. I wouldn't say that we're where we want to get to on our journey of in the flow of work, but we can see a roadmap to it over the next 12 to 18 months where I'd say we're where we want to be.
Amazing. So taking that enablement piece a little bit further then, given the world that we are entering, that we're moving towards, what kind of capabilities in terms of the people that Couchbase will employ in the future? What are the key capabilities, whether it's skills or character attributes? What would you be looking for in people?
I mean, lots of. I don't want to necessarily go into every one thing that I think is important, and that maybe is changed a little bit, and certainly relevant to our space. And the phrase I'd use is kind of situational fluency. And in our world, that is understanding enough about the technology that you can hold an engaging call with a developer or architect. So with our software, you can't just say, yeah, what are you trying to do? Oh, let me get an SE or let me get a technical person to do that. You need to have some level of capability yourself. So one of the things that we spent a lot of time and effort on the back of an initiative that one of my colleagues in one of the regions had kicked off is something called Tech Labs. So Tech Labs is about getting a better technical understanding of our product and things around it for the sales team, not just for the technical team. And I'll give one example of that I thought was actually then related to AI. So middle of this year, or when was it? It was probably about April actually. So you start to see more discussion around AI, and we start to talk more about our products and our roadmap and what's going to happen. And you start to talk about LLMs and AGI and all these concepts. Well, what is some of this stuff? So we built a course that was an introduction to AI that is now, was originally for our sales team. We did a course around that. Each one of these tech labs, we use Kahoot, which is one of our customers as well, for the quiz technology. And then we actually have a leaderboard. And one of the great outcomes from this is that we're actually seeing non-technical people in the mix of the top of the leaderboard with their peers in the SE.
You don't
world.
mean a sales leaderboard? You mean this is an AI awareness leaderboard?
We have two. We have so for whatever the subject is. So introduction to AI is one. It could be on our new products. So we've done things around vector search, around columnar database, things that are new functionality that we've released. But what we're trying to do is emphasize the fact that having a strong baseline of knowledge is a advantage for you, because you're able to carry much more of the conversation. And also one of the places that you can get our audience to really engage and open up, developers and architects, is at technology meetups. You know, it could be at someone else's meetup. It could be a partner event from AWS, Microsoft, Google, one of the hyperscalers. It could be something that we've put on. But I certainly remember when I was at Cloudera, you know, which was a collection of I mean, 13, 14 different open source technologies into the Cloudera data platform, and you need to go and speak about Hive, Spark, Sharp, HBase, all of these concepts that I knew nothing about before, but it's really important with that type of technical audience that you're able to have that, again, what I call situational fluency. So that's something that we probably have put more effort into, because if you mentioned the challenger sale before, and I think of the challenger sale hypothesis, which is people know more about the product now. They don't have to come to you for your, go right back to copiers. Well, you didn't have to go and, physically, you can, yes, you could ship a demo machine and do stuff, but to actually know how did this thing work, you have to get hands-on with it. Then I could do much more research and find out how things work and have a good idea. Well, now I can just do it. So Capella, with our free tier, someone can go on, use the product, experience it, start to build a small kind of app in pre-production. We've got to have people that then can engage when someone's at that level versus what's NoSQL? 5 years ago, our enablement was kind of educating people on what NoSQL is.
Right.
5 years later, we've got to be at a much, a much different level.
And the people that are going to be able to do that, though, are a different type of person, I would say. They have to have their curiosity and interest has got to be there. But that would also, I remember, I think it might have been, there was a guy called John Cunningham at NTL Telewest or Telewest Business back. I use this phrase back in the day, increasingly nowadays. But he used to call it BRI, basic raw intelligence. It's a different way of, I suppose, what he was hinting at was situational fluency. It was of a different time, a different period, but he wanted somebody that could adapt to the situation and had a lot of brain power, which I'm assuming, my guess is that would be a key part of it. So the salespeople are going to be more intelligent in the future. We're going to be with more demand, as I say, for that basic raw intelligence.
I think the thing, so in our talent profile and the behavioral aspects, one of the competencies that we look at now is ability for technical learning. So we don't have to make it, we don't do a panel with a salesperson and say, present to us how stored procedures work or database functions. What we'll do is ask the question, and I, for the last 6 to 9 months now, I've asked this question of almost everyone I've interviewed for whatever job it is, which is, tell me the last time you taught yourself something and why.
Right.
So what I've had is answers that range from baking to engineering projects to AI technology to how to code an app to building a rocket. I mean, I've had every kind of thing of this, but what it allows you to do is just understand if someone's got that mentality and mindset that they want to do that. We don't need to hire necessarily more intelligent salespeople. We need to hire more curious salespeople. I think that aptitude for technical learning, and then, alongside that, willingness to build technical champions is something that is important. Again, and that's specific to us because that's our audience. Yes, when you're in a company where we've got 100 apps, then we're at the C level and heads of departments, and depending on the size of the companies, at the CEO level for the technology. But typically, you want people that are feeling comfortable with the ability to learn new concepts.
Yeah,
because that will hold them in good stead, not just for that part, but let's say we get better technology, more AI that's able to handle some of that work for them. Yeah. You've got to be interested in how that thing works itself.
Yeah, so inspired by technology, I think.
So it's going to be exactly. It's both in the technology that we sell, but also the technology that we use in that process of selling. Yes. That improves to cover some of those gaps.
Yeah, they just need to be excited by it and inspired by technology, because I don't know, again, I'm kind of going back, but if you ever heard of the the motivational speaker from Texas. I think he was back in the day. But Zig Ziglar, he used to say that selling was a transference of belief. As I say, the enthusiasm. And my guess is, if you've got somebody who is, if you think again, we've mentioned Steve Jobs already, but again, a classic example, somebody that was inspired and passionate by the technology, and he was able to transfer that to other people, that he was able to inspire them. So listen, those are great insights. I've got more on my list here, but I'm conscious of time here, so I think we're going to kind of wrap up our interview here today, Stuart. That has been fantastic. Actually, we've taken quite a journey from where we started, and from where you started from your account management position at Novell to where we are today, talking about how AI is going to take us into, it is definitely a revolution. And oddly enough, I think you've been able to, with some of the things you've said there, your enthusiasm for it has kind of inspired me. I'm going to have to check out some of these apps you've been talking about here to see exactly what they can do. So you've done a good job of selling that to me here today.
Well,
Thanks ever so much for your time.
Let me speak to the people responsible for selling them first, so I can make sure we're all happy with it. No, I'll send you a list of this stuff. What would be fascinating is someone takes the podcast and puts it through Google Notebook LM to create another podcast of the podcast. That's when you know.
That's right. And you'll have, instead of a Welshman and an Englishman talking about it, you'll have two. Well, my guess is you can probably even choose the characters that deliver the podcast. But the one I've heard is it was a very much American man and woman, but very professional kind of TV presenter or podcast style. It is exceptional. And the other thing little note I made here just to end on, when you're on about where is it going, where does it go forward, the other revolution, as you talked about, is said there is the industrial revolution. If you think to it, there's limits to the extent that technology could be taken, the physical limits to it. But there is the phrase, I don't know if you come across, the singularity. You mentioned Eric Schmidt earlier on. He's somebody who's probably been probably would have been talking about these things 20 years ago with some of the people that he would have been spending time with. But the possibility is that, say, these generative AI technologies, it'll be potentially to get into an exponential curve of improvement where it will be potentially doubling, 10xing in capability every day, every hour, every second. And that, I think, takes us to, well, the singularity. We'll have to wait and see when and where that is. I hope I'm around to see it.
I hope I'm around to both see it and partake in it. Because
absolutely.
If we're not partaking in it, then we become the machine, the power of the intelligence. So, but I can see that I think there's much more good than bad to come of this yet. And like you, very excited to see how things develop, and pretty sure they're going to develop very quickly.
Brilliant. Well, Stuart, thanks ever so much for today. We'll have you on again at some point in the not too distant future. I'm sure things will have changed dramatically by that point. But it's been great to spend some time with you here. Thanks for being so open, lots of candor, lots of insight there. I hope our listeners and viewers will value it too. So until we meet again, Stu, all the very best. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Been a pleasure. See you soon.
Brilliant.